Hi YouTube, my name is Jack, and today we're going to talk about covens. This is a topic that has been on my mind a lot lately because I just moved. Having finished up my PhD, uh, I'm in the process of applying for jobs, non-academic jobs, get me the hell out of the ivory tower, and while I do that, I have to sort of have a place to live in the interim. My lease in New Jersey expired, and rather than locking into another lease in New Jersey and then hopefully, knock on wood, getting hired somewhere and having to move and extricate myself from that lease, I decided to pick up and move for the time being. New Jersey really never felt like home. I was never terribly happy there. And since I had the opportunity to leave and go somewhere else for the time being, I picked up my entire life, drove across the country, and I'm now in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I'm, just staying like in the living room in a friend's apartment while I continue job applications and who knows where I'll end up long term. But Salt Lake has been really good to me so far. I actually really, really like it here. I had desperately been missing the mountains, and to be up in the mountains again is just such a joy to me. I went for a hike yesterday, and just being up in the mountains in this sort of beautiful expanse of the Wasatch National Forest is just incredible. So really happy to be here, really excited for next steps, and delighted to have made the move out west. But one of the consequences of having made that move is that I am no longer a member of a coven. When I moved, I officially retired from my initiating coven, which I had been with for the entire time that I've been in the Gardnerian tradition. And wherever I end up long term, I will find or start a group. But for the time being, I'm covenless. And, and that's all right. Like, I'm doing kind of earthy, dirty, crunchy, solitary witchcraft. It's been a lot of fun. But it's got me thinking about the importance of covens in traditional Wicca. Because the basic unit of Wicca, of, traditional lineaged initiatory Wicca, Gardnerian, Alexandrian, and so on, the basic unit of Wicca is not I, but we. It's not the individual practitioner, but it is the practitioner in relationship to other people. And really, there are two we units at work in the craft, right? There's the working partnership. So every coven is founded upon the partnership of a high priestess and a high priest. And the high priestess takes preeminence. The high priest is kind of her second in command. But they are a team. They are working together, and the basic unit there is the we of the high priestess and the high priest. And then sort of popping out a level from that, the other basic unit in Wicca is the coven, is the group of people with whom you meet regularly to do witchcraft, including casting spells, worshipping the gods, and observing the turning of the wheel of the year. And this is significant for a couple of reasons. There are a couple of things that I want to touch on here. The first is, I think that in the discourse, both within the Wiccan community, but then also when we are interfacing with seekers or when seekers are approaching traditional Wicca, in the way that people talk about Wicca, there is sometimes this idea of emphasis on a tradition, the Gardnerian tradition, the Alexandrian tradition, the Gardnerian community, the community of Gardnerian initiates as a whole. And that's not as important as people sometimes make it out to be. The basic unit is the coven. And, there are things that covens have in common. There are broad commonalities such that I could walk into just about any Gardnerian ritual in the world and have a sense of what was going on. And there would be some things that would be different from what I was used to, but there would be some things that I recognized and was familiar with, and I would be able to participate appropriately in that ritual. But really and truly, the core, I hate that word, the heart of what we're doing in initiatory Wicca begins and ends with the coven. The coven is the people that you know, that you trust, that you like, and that you see regularly to do your witchcraft with. I have friends in the Gardnerian and Alexandrian communities. I have people in the wider initiatory Wiccan community whom I like, whom I respect, whom I admire. And I will talk to them about Wicca and borrow ideas from them and try new things that I've heard from them, or, vice versa, share my own ideas with them. But at the end of the day, they go back to their covens and I go back to mine. And the people that I'm practicing witchcraft with are my coven. Ultimately, really and truly, the only people who matter are my coven. And that relationship, the relationship between the witch and their coven, is the most important thing, arguably. There's room for disagreement there, but is among the most important things in traditional Wicca. And the relationship to the wider community is there, but I think it's really secondary to what you have going on with your own coven. And again, like coven leaders, talk to each other, or initiates talk to each other, and will borrow ideas from each other and try new things. And like there is still a broader community, but when you are, especially when you're a seeker approaching, Gardnerian Wicca or Alexandrian Wicca, I think seekers a lot of the time are looking for a particular tradition or a particular idea of like the real Wiccan experience, the authentic Wiccan experience, which they will get from a particular initiatory tradition. And to a certain extent, that's kind of true, but what's much more important than that is the group of people. And there's so much variation between covens. You really can't reliably, especially from the outside, you can't reliably say like, oh, this tradition is going to like get me the kind of experience that I want, because different covens within the tradition might practice very differently in ways that you might not know about from the outside. But what you're looking for is like, yes, a tradition. You want traditional learning. You want the sense of continuity with a larger tradition, with a sense of something that hasn't just been like made up by one person last Tuesday. But you're also looking for people that you connect to. You're looking for people that you click with. People will often use the language of family to describe a coven. And I think that's kind of fraught. I think family language gets really complicated, A, because people have complicated relationships with their own families, and B, because there are so many different ways that a family structure can look that it's not actually a terribly helpful analogy. But what people mean when they say that a coven is like a family is that a coven is a really close, tight-knit community of people. These are people who like each other, who know each other well, and who trust each other well enough to be able to do magic and be really vulnerable with each other. And that takes a lot. That takes a lot of work. A coven is not a business arrangement. If you come to me and you're a seeker and we hate each other, we can't stand each other, but you check all of the boxes and do all of the exercises, it's not like you can just go down a checklist and then be like, okay, I like read all of the books, now initiate me, because a coven is not just a matter of like checking boxes and then you initiate people and do magic. A coven is about a community of people who genuinely like each other and who are genuinely close to each other and excited to see each other to do magic together. And that's part of why training takes so long before you can be initiated into a coven. You can't just show up to a coven and be initiated the next week. It takes a period of usually at least a year, often more than that. And the reason is that as an outsider coming into a coven, you are sort of a new element potentially being introduced to an existing community of people. And there's an ecosystem there in that existing coven dynamic. And bringing new people into that has the potential to disrupt it, has the potential to damage the existing community. It will change the existing community, but the goal is to bring people in who will change the community for the better, who will bring something productive, rather than damaging what there already is. And so part of why covens take so long in training people and getting to know them prior to initiation is making sure that you like them and they like you, and you're able to be in community with each other in a productive way before you get introduced to the coven, which is a really small and close community that you are going to be in ideally for years of your life. And the goal is to preserve that group dynamic and make sure that it's healthy and safe and rewarding for everyone there. I think that it's easy from the outside to feel put out or neglected, or like you're being denied something. And the reason for that is you kind of are being denied something, but you're not being denied something because you're not good enough when it takes a long time to get to know a coven, a long time to be initiated. You're being denied something because the existing coven is so valuable, is so precious, and the priority is to preserve that community. And if you are brought into the community, you have to be brought in a way that the existing members of that community can be confident they're not going to lose the sense of closeness and community that they already have. People sometimes talk about covens as controlling environments, and certainly there have been covens in the past that have been, controlling and abusive, and like you're expected to pick up the high priestess's dry cleaning, or else you're never going to get the next degree, and the coven leaders get to say who you do and don't date, or whatever. Like there certainly have been covens in the past that exerted inappropriate amounts of control over their initiates' lives. But the goal of a coven is not that. People talk about covens as if, oh, I wouldn't want to be a part of a coven because I don't want someone else telling me how to do my witchcraft. And, I don't know, that's not really what happens in a coven. Maybe in the context of the rituals that you're doing together with your coven, there is a way that things are done and you're not in charge of it. But you always have your own witchcraft, right? You always have your practice as an individual. But at the same time, covens are hard, and covens aren't for everyone. The reason that covens are hard is because covens are communities. Covens are communities, and communities are difficult. You are in a close relationship with a number of people, ranging from, 3 people to a dozen. But you're in a close relationship with people that you're seeing regularly, that you're trusting with intimate details of your life, who are trusting you with intimate details of their lives. And that kind of community is really difficult to maintain. It has to be preserved and it has to be protected. And, you're going to fight with people in your coven because people fight with each other. People have disagreements. And you have to, if you're in a coven, if you're making the commitment to being in the coven, you have to be able and willing to work through those kinds of fights in order to preserve the community. And that's a really hard thing to do. And the reason that it takes so long to bring someone into a coven is that covens, well, there are other reasons, but one of the reasons is that covens need to make sure that that's something that you will be able to do with the group and that the group will be able to do with you. There is some other mystical stuff behind covens. There's a sense that you kind of magically belong to each other, that you're looking for this kind of ineffable clique. And I don't mean to downplay that, because that is significant. But there is also just this really important practical thing that, in Wicca, the basic unit, the thing that matters is your coven. And your coven is a community that you are a part of, that you are committed to preserving and maintaining and ensuring that it's a healthy, happy space. And that takes a lot of work. And it's so valuable. It's so worth it being in a coven because you have that really close community. But, I don't know, I think that from the outside, seekers especially, sometimes think about the tradition more so than about the coven, and don't understand why covens are placing such a high emphasis on, like, well, we have to like you, we have to be a good fit personality wise, or like, why why is this community the thing that matters so much, and why are so many sort of safeguards being put in place to preserve the community? And it's because really that is that relationship with the coven, and that interrelationship between you and other people, like, that's what it's all about. So anyways, those are my thoughts for this Sunday afternoon. I'm going to wrap it up here because my computer is about to die, but thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you sometime soon. Bye.